And welcome back. And we also welcome back Richard Skinner, our digital sports columnist. Skinny, thanks for coming back and hanging with us.
I ran out and ran back just
ran back just for me. That's why he's the best, isn't he? All right, let's talk a little Bengals draft. We got the new stripes coming up tomorrow. I know you're personally very excited to see it.
Extraordinarily excited. Can't wait. I think it is cool. Fans are going to love it. And listen, I do recall when they did this in '81. It was exciting for me as a teenager to see new uniforms. I'm too old for that now. I just want to see the guys in the uniforms play winning football. That's all I care about. But listen, I do know the fans enjoy it. It is going to be cool to see a little rebranding of some kind.
Now, for who will be a rookie in those uniforms, we still have to wait about 10 days away from the NFL draft. Skinny, two schools of thought with the number 5, and really the draft for the Bengals can go two different ways for the Bengals with what they do at that number 5 pick.
Yeah, that's the part to me is everybody keeps talking about this either or with the 5th pick, and it is an either or, I think. I think we've settled into that unless you get wowed by a trade on draft night. I know some fans want Kyle Pitts, but I just don't see that taking place. So the either or, as we know, is Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase. So then I think that's where you're going to see where does the draft go after that. Because then there is that camp that goes, well, you didn't address offensive line. Well, you got rounds 2, 3, 4. You got more rounds to address offensive line. The flip side, too, is if you take Penei Sewell, well, they didn't address wide receiver. Well, you got rounds 2, 3, 4. You got more time to address those. But I think it does show the path the draft are going to go in. So if you take Penei Sewell in the first round, I'm not in on that. I'm all team Chase at this stage. But if you do, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I understand the pick. Then you're probably going wide receiver or edge rusher top of second round. And then you're probably going to go wide receiver, edge rusher, maybe address offensive line again in the 3rd round. And then beyond, start to fill in those gaps. You're not going to ignore either of those position groups. The flip side is if you take Jamar Chase, and I think this is where it's a little more definitive. I do believe if you take Jamar Chase with that first round pick, I think at least the 2nd round pick is an offensive lineman. And I think maybe they pony and double up in the 3rd round. They've done a lot of that of late. It's not always worked out for their sake. Back in 2015, and I think it's the draft, I wrote a piece this week, that's kind of the draft that set things adrift to where they're losing today. They had a plan. It didn't work out. Their plan was they weren't going to re-sign Andrew Whitworth in a couple of years at that point. Andre Smith was on his way out, so they took Cedric Ogbuehi, Jake Fisher. Didn't even have to start those two guys because they still had Andre Smith and Andrew Whitworth on the roster, but it was, here's our future tackles. Well, that didn't work out, but they went back-to-back this past year. Linebacker, definitive need, right? Didn't address it in free agency other than Josh Bynes. Didn't address it in rounds 1 or 2, and then went rounds 3, 4, and 7. But the pony up back-to-back picks. I do believe if you go that Jamar Chase route, I'd be surprised if they didn't go those back-to-backers of 2nd, 3rd round. At the minimal 2nd, 4th round, if there's somebody that's an edge or maybe interior defensive lineman. I just don't see them going that high for one in 3rd round. But it's so funny because there's two different ways that they're going to go with this. I think the Sewell pick gives them a little more flexibility, but at the same time, are you then going to rely on a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round wide receiver if you go 2nd round edge rusher, for example, 2nd round interior lineman, for example? Would you be able then to get a difference maker? I think you roll the dice. You hope you got one. I think with Jamar Chase, it's pretty definitive. On paper, you're getting one. With Penei Sewell, it's you don't need him today. It'd be nice, and maybe he kicks into guard. That's been talked about. You don't need him today, but Riley Reif's a 1-year guy, so you're going to need him in the future. So that's where, to me, if I'm going to take a developmental guy or a guy I don't need, I think I'm going the Jamar Chase, then pony up back-to-back 2nd, 3rd, or 2nd, 4th round offensive lineman at that point. It just seems more logistically right.
Let's get some names on both of these eventualities. We'll call them the I don't know, Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Bengals alternate realities. I'm not that creative, folks. If they do take Chase at number 5, give me some names of offensive linemen that they could target.
I mean, there's Oklahoma. There's a kid, Harkin's kid from Oklahoma State. I haven't dove that deep into it. I mean, there's plenty of guys out there to me. Because it can waver so much. That's why when you do some of this stuff, it's hard to do names when all is said and done. There's plenty of guys out there is the bottom line.
Now, on the wide receiver part, I know the top line guys, everyone's talking about, the guys that will go in the 1st round. You can find wide receivers later in the draft, and there are some names that we've seen out there.
Well, we talked about the Western Michigan kid from last week who's, we were looking at small school guys, if you will, and he's a 3rd round grade guy. That's perfect. There are so many guys that are 2nd, 3rd round wide receivers. You got a chance to hit a home run with a lot of those guys. There's even guys down in the 4th round that have some different skill sets, whether it's speed or whether it's size. Wide receiver's always deep, and that's where you kind of always have to give yourself pause when you go, I'm going to take that first-round wide receiver, right? And I do think that's the way to go, but then you look and you go, well, wait a minute, we could have gotten this guy in the second or the third or the fourth and maybe even dip down to the fifth and feel pretty good about that. So that's where, to me, it's I still go Chase. It's just so hard for me to ignore his productivity and take a college lineman. I think I'm going to stay in that camp. If you give me my choice, I think I'd love to trade that back and have multiple picks and play with that. That's just not their MO.
He's Richard Skinner. He's Team Chase. I'm definitely Team Penei
I know.
Sewell,
so yeah, we'll see which team's right, and it'll end up being Team Kyle Pitts, and we're all going to be wrong.
Richard Skinner, thanks for joining us.